Good morning, friends. Welcome to an episode of the Make Saints podcast. I'm Drew Downs. And this one is called We See More Than Fish. So there's this story I remember from years ago. I heard on National Public Radio. It was an interview with someone, probably a researcher who was writing a book. Or had a book coming out, and he was talking about this study he did with middle schoolers, and he wanted to compare how U.S. students learn versus Japanese students. He wanted to talk about the cultural differences between the two worlds, and this was one of the studies that sort of dug into it, and it really was poignant and still sticks with me. So I want to share it with you. As a way of sort of getting at why we're struggling today. This is one of the challenges for us in our current context, and I think this kind of gets at it from a new angle. And so he was telling about the study, and it was with middle schoolers, and he got these essentially 12-year-olds, and it's a perfect age because they've been in school long enough who have learned and adapted and become enculturated in that culture, but they're not old enough to be in that sort of like rebellious, break all the rules yet world, right? So it's a great opportunity to learn from that age group. And so we got 20 U.S. students and 20 Japanese students. He ran this experiment separately with these two groups. And he had the American students, he said, give them 10 minutes before the hour. They were brought into a room. It's like a parlor, so there was nothing in it. It's just kind of like the place that you lounge, that you mingle in before you go and sit down at the dinner party, right? It's just nothing's there, except in the middle of the room is what appears to be a round table. There's something on it, you believe, and then there's this white tablecloth over the whole thing, so you can't tell. It obscures it, but it looks like there might be a box or something there. And so they're given 10 minutes to just sort of like mingle and be in the room. And they're 12-year-olds, so they don't talk to each other. They're all looking at their feet, getting bored. And then promptly on the hour, somebody walks in to give them their instructions. And the person says, I will give you 60 seconds to observe. And then we will leave the room. So then he tore off the tablecloth and revealed what was underneath, and all the kids are just sort of like kids, and so they all want to get closer, and all the kids in the back are are jumping up and trying to lean over and find a way that they could observe, because they sense that this is what they're supposed to do, right? You're looking to see what was under there, so that they could observe it. And what was there was a common fish tank, with the pebbles and the seaweed and the fish swimming around it, and the gurgling sounds and all that stuff. And they're looking for their minute, and then the researcher comes back, covers the fish, leads the group out of the room and down the hall into another room where there are 20 desks lined up, and on each desk is a piece of paper and a pencil. They're sent to find a desk, sit down, and once they stop making all of the noise and they are ready. The instructions they give are simple. Write what you observed. Write what you observed. And they administered this to the U.S. students and to the Japanese students. Now, before we get to like what happened, I want to invite you to just speculate. Just take a second to think about what you think this looks like. Like, what do you think the answers that people give are? How do they respond to this? And how might it be different? Just take a minute to speculate. So, as you're thinking about it, I'll start giving the answer. The 20 out of 20 American students had some variation of a fish or a goldfish as the response. Like, what did you observe? Just a fish. That's all they wrote. When this was administered to the Japanese students, I think the order goes something like this. They all had a narrative response that contained the same elements in the same order. And so they all began by describing the size and the shape of the fish tank, the volume of water and the space of the air at the top, the blue and pink and gray stones at the bottom, the green plastic seaweed that was in there, the little toys that were in the bottom, and the little hut that the fish can hide in, and then finally the goldfish that was swimming in the middle. They all had that same variation of that same answer, that same written narrative. Now, as a researchers, you would first recognize that that's 40 out of 40 correct answers based on our cultures, because that's very much what they would have predicted, that you get 1,000 American students, we're all trained the same way, and that training is actually kind of is fascinating to me. That what we're doing is we're creating an idea that there is a singular answer, and that the student's job is to make the best educated guess at what that correct answer is. If that sounds insanely close to what we call generative AI or learning language models, what they're training computers to do, you would not be alone, because that was the creepy response I had to it, which is the idea is not that we are training the computers to think like humans. We're actually inviting computers to adopt the same limiting thinking that our present educational culture encourages. Because it's just an educated guess. It's an educated guess that an authority figure needs to hear fish, that is the right answer, in scare quotes, right? The right answer. It's not, right? A right answer that I would have loved to have seen is if one of those students had written their observation. What they had observed was the 19 students who were observing a fish. That would have been a great essay. Yeah. So what do you think this means for us now? What do you think this? Does this not sound a lot like our pursuits for easy answers to things, or that we can just summarize a complex issue with one little piece of it and be like, yep, this is it. This is the answer. This is what we got to do, and pretend it isn't more. There was an example recently. I was listening to an interview with someone who was sort of talking about the limits of universal basic income, and what they were suggesting in this case. The limits of it was, merely giving people cash, and that simply giving out cash did not actually seem to have the sort of benefits that they thought it was. And I'm sitting here the whole time I'm listening to this podcast. I keep raging. I'm starting getting more and more upset because I'm wondering when the host is going to ask, like, but what else are we doing? Because you give out the money that's going to go to people to give to people, and then someone will raise the rents on them, and so it won't because they got the money. So now the rent will go up. And so if you're not going to do some other things, of course that's what's going to happen without paying attention to these other things, these singular answers. That's why these singular answers all just fail. It's why, healthcare, mental health care won't solve the gun issue, right? Of course these things don't solve it. These singular answers can't solve the whole thing. It doesn't represent the whole thing. It's not real. It's a fiction we're telling each other, and it doesn't match what we actually value. But we think that this is where we got to go, and we think this is what we want, but it's not. And here's why I want to tell us it's not. Imagine you're getting excited. You're going to go to the movies, and you're excited about this new film that's coming out tonight, and you want to be one of the people going to see it on opening night. And so you go and you drive to the theater, and you stand in line, and you spend $12 on your ticket, and you walk up to the concession stand, and you spend another $12 on a bucket of popcorn and $6 on a trough of a drink, and you walk over to your Freestyle Coke station, and you push 12 buttons to get to your vanilla Diet Coke, and you fill that trough up with your ice and your drink, and you slap the top on and your straw, and you walk down the hallway to the theater. You're just bounding, and you always get there because you want to see the preview, so you're there 10 minutes early, and you watch all the sort of the trivia stuff and the advertisements, and then you get to 7 to 12 trailers, some of which are halfway decent. And then all the lights go all the way down, and the screen is black, and then white block letters, probably League Spartan, say "The Fish." And you are geeked because this movie you've been waiting for this to happen. You've been waiting to see this movie, and it's starting. It's here, and then the title goes away, and a simple little chalky drawing starts, and it's just a line tracing the rudimentary outline of a fish. He's about 20 seconds to draw this whole fish, and then the house lights come up, and you go home. No one wants that. No one wants the fish. No one wants that to be the thing. We think we can solve it that way, but then it doesn't. It doesn't solve anything. The fish does not solve the world. Knowing what's happening helps us live. Because what we want is for that movie or that thing to remind us to feel the way it feels to have that fish tank on our kids' dresser, where we can watch the sunlight sparkle on the top and sort of create that beautiful rainbow effect throughout a ribboning throughout the water, and to be able to watch those gills on the side on the fish's side move in and out, literally breathing Like you want to imagine yourself breathing underwater like a fish, and then observe. If it's a goldfish, they're great, but the beta, if you have a beta with that beautiful tail, it's just it's like a silk scarf flowing in the water. You want to experience these things. You want to see it play. You want to see it respond to your voice. Friends, we want life. We want to be able to see the fullness of life. We need the whole thing. We don't need to pretend we can solve it like that. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next time.